OTBAM.
Brought to you by Avantcard Reward Plus Credit Card. Powered by MasterCard. Straight up better than your current credit card. Avantcard DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
It's 7:30 on this Wednesday morning, and you're very welcome along to OTBAM. We're with you as ever until 9:30 this morning, and you can tweet us at Off The Ball, or you can comment on the stream below if you've got anything you want to get off your chest or any questions for our guest in studio all morning. Andy Lee, how are you?
Good.
So I woke up this morning, went to bed pretty early last night. I woke up this morning to about 100 or so WhatsApp messages, including plenty in this brand new WhatsApp group that I'm now in called Love Island. Well, and you're in this WhatsApp group.
It's actually the same WhatsApp group. I just changed the name of it from Game of Thrones.
We just got more highbrow.
to Love Island. And I remember when Game of Thrones was over and you were like, we'll do a Love Island one. And I was like, I'm not ever going to watch that. I don't watch it. And
so how has it managed to pull you in then?
I blame my wife, but Tommy Fury, along with my wife, I think, kind of got me into it. I was interested to see what he was doing there. And then it's addictive, isn't it? It's enjoyable. Like, it's kind of like mindless, kind of like you've done your day, you're stressed, you've done all your work, you've got the baby to bed, throw yourself on the couch, chill out.
Yeah, well, like I would say, it's definitely one of those shows you wouldn't be hyperactive about when you're going to bed at night. You're certainly not overthinking life when you're watching Love Island and you go to bed. Have you met Tommy Fury a couple of times?
I've never met him, no. I've never met him.
Is he a good boxer?
He's 3-0. He's quite inexperienced, you know, and but the joke was before he even went in there, because Ricky Hatton signed him. Ricky Hatton used to make the joke that he looks more like a Love Island contestant than a boxer, and then lo and behold, a year later he's in Love Island. So I think he's done really well. Do you think he's favoured?
I think so. Yeah.
Who are you tipping?
Right, him. For sure. He was
with Molly May, or you have your doubts about Molly May, do you?
Well, no, I don't. It was Sue outside who has her doubts. I'm not going to lie, I have kind of drifted away from it over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
It's
I won't give any spoilers.
The lack of drama really has kind of pushed me away. But you would have got him at 7-1 about 2 months ago.
You seem to see last night's episode.
Yeah, once you look at Twitter trends any morning, you know you're kind of you get spoilers straight away. For anybody who wasn't watching that last night,
I'm actually surprised because it was the Game of Thrones group, which was me, you, Tommy and Sue. And then people start getting at it, like Adrian and now Joe Malloy's looking to get in the group. And
well, Joe is the off-the-ball Love Island superfan. I would advise listening this morning to anybody after you're done with OTBAM is to go back about 2 weeks and listen to Ivan Yates and Joe Malloy talk about Love Island. It is one of the single greatest pieces of content ever produced on News Talk or on Off the Ball. We do want to talk a little bit about Shane Lowry this morning, because the homecoming last night looked insane. I'm not sure, did you catch any of it?
I just see a bit of it on the news, the end of it, and great scenes with his grandmother who kind of and that's stole his thunder, but it's definitely taking some of the spotlight. You know?
Yeah,
he's a great character.
That picture we just put up there is incredible. It looks like Metallica at Slane.
I know. Well, he deserves it. You know, and you know what the nicest thing for me about this whole thing is when someone like Shane Lowry, who doesn't call it like celebrity. You know, he's not an extrovert. He doesn't keep an entourage. He's not like. He's accessible and he's approachable. Like, and when guys like that achieve something, it's not downplay, but it's like, oh well, great for him, you know. When someone like Tiger Woods or Rory McIlroy, they kind of put up on a pedestal and like, wow, this guy is a superstar, you know, and like, isn't he amazing? But I don't know, it's always kind of played differently when there's people who, I don't know, who are nice, you know. It's but I'm glad, and I have to like commend everyone in here, because every day you tune in and there's something about Shane Lowry, you know, and off the ball, and he deserves this, you know, and he is a superstar now, you know, in terms of what way you want to play. Like, he might not be the superstar who will show up and with 5 bodyguards and, you know, won't sign an autograph, but he's a superstar in his own right, and it's great to see the nice guy finishing first, you know.
For sure, that's completely skewed everything over the last couple of days. What's the biggest homecoming you've ever had? 2014?
2014, yeah. It wasn't a nice day in July, not a nice sunny day in July. I think it was about like mid-December in Limerick, and we didn't actually went to a civic reception, and it wasn't until like 7 in the evening that got to go out and meet people, and it was lashing rain, so it is a great feeling. It is. It does really take it makes it all worthwhile, you know. And I'm sure there's been like several, I don't know, commentaries about Shane Lowry and how his family not suffered but worked hard for him to be able to do what he did, and how often people would see him going in and out the road with the golf bag on his back as a young fella, and that makes it all worthwhile. Days like this, you know, when you have those homecomings and things like that.
How hard is it for someone like Shane Lowry this week to try and soak it all in?
It seems like he's doing a good job.
He is. Seems like he's doing a very good job.
Straight to the pub. And fair play to him. He's not letting it go to his head, it seems. But I don't know. I think he's probably in the whirlwind, and it'll be in time when he looks back. He probably won't even. I don't know with golf because it's such a long career, but like with me, it wasn't until you retire or that you get some distance from it that you'll actually look back and say that was a great day.
Is that right? Yeah. Even though you might have a bit of distance between fights. Yeah,
you do appreciate it. You think it's a great day, but you don't really fully grasp it until it's done, you know. And it's I think in time he'll look back on it, and the photographs will last forever. You know what I mean? And the memories will, and. For his daughter, this is, I think she's only 2 years old. Like, I'm not sure she comprehends it, but she knows something's going on with her dad, and she'll have some impression of it as she grows up, and she'll always have the photographs to look back on and say that she was there and be proud of her father. Yeah.
Let's see what Shane Lowry was saying on the show, because he was talking to Joe Malloy last night.
It wasn't that way because I was, my stomach was in knots all day.
Really?
I couldn't stop thinking about, winning, holding the trophy, being on the 18th, losing. You kind of, everything goes through your head because you have so much time to think out there, But Bo did a great job of keeping me, in the present and keeping me in a good frame of mind and, trying not to get too far ahead of myself. But, we talked a lot during the round on Sunday, which helped an awful lot.
And what was
one thing's for certain, I was definitely nervous.
Well, geez, it really didn't come across, because I was going to ask you then the atmosphere on course with Fleetwood. It looked good. Like at one point, again, I'm working off cameras. You were walking off the green, and you shouted back to Fleetwood's caddy, "Geez, let's get the Sambos out." I don't know if you remember that, but I was thinking this fella's having a ball. It seemed like the atmosphere was pretty good with you two. Much talk or not too much talk?
Not too much talk. You're in the heat of the battle, but I'd be very good friends with Tommy and his caddy Finnall. They're two great lads, and I get on very well with them. And I said to him I said to him actually Saturday evening, I was in the locker room. I said, let's go out tomorrow and give it a go, and hopefully one of us wins it at the end of the day. Like that's the way I was looking at it. And obviously, I was hoping that was me, but you're out there and you're out there playing with friends. You're trying your best. I'm obviously trying to make sure that I do the right things for me out there, and I enjoyed it. Saturday was probably one of the best days I've ever had on a golf course.
Yeah, I'd say so.
The crowd Saturday evening was just incredible. Sunday was obviously quite good, but I'll never ever forget Saturday evening when I finished the round. It was just what an incredible day.
Shane Lowry there in conversation with Joe on last night's show. The full piece available on youtube.com/offtheball. Let's tell you what is coming up on OTBAM this morning. We're with you until 9:30. We're going to get stuck into the sports pages in just a moment. A bit more on Shane Lowry's homecoming in the company of Will O'Callaghan as well. Before that, Cian Healy then is coming your way at 8:10. He was
you had a bit of crack with Cian Healy.
Cian Healy, yes.
Tommy has something up his sleeve here.
That was amazing. Yeah. Tommy was asking me to drink some of the barbecue.
Have a taste.
We go for it. We can cut this out afterwards if this doesn't go well.
Oh, you're slugging. Oh, go for it.
Wow. Yeah. So did I. That would have been a way better idea. Just dip my finger in. I actually just drank a bit of barbecue sauce. That's the most stupid thing I've ever done. Was
that just thing I've ever done? What to do with this thing?
Dawned on me, just put my finger in. That full interview is coming up later on. He's promoting barbecue sauce. It's lovely barbecue sauce, even though my throat is still burning. Will O'Callaghan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are things?
Good. You were in Clara last night?
I was, yeah. It's a magic night. I mean, it's definitely up there with the homecomings that I can remember, particularly for the All-Ireland hurling teams in the 1990s. And Shane Lowry's just brought everyone together. I think it's even been more than just the town of Clara. There was people from far and wide who made their way into the green last night. I think estimated crowd was more than 15,000. And when you look back, it was just, the bank was full of people. From about 3 o'clock in the day, they closed the town off. You can see Lowry being mobbed coming into town. That was just kind of at the edge of the green. He came in a bus first of all, and then kind of walked through with a band through the town. And you can just see the amount of people who are trying to just get a touch of the claret jug, get a picture with him, get a handshake, get whatever.
How many hands do you think he shook yesterday?
More than a presidential candidate. And the funny thing is, right, the RNA can be quite stuffy about things. And generally, I remember when the claret jug came in here before, and we were told under strict instruction, do not put your hand anywhere near the claret jug. Yesterday, Shane Lowry was just like, I met him in Leeson Street, and anyone that wants to hold the claret jug for a moment, he lets them do it. He's taken, I'd say, 850 billion selfies since Sunday. He hasn't had a whole lot of sleep since Sunday either. So I think yesterday was a very emotional day. It's a day that he's always going to remember, because I don't know how it feels for you when you go to Limerick, Andy. Like, the fact that he came back to his hometown just makes it that little bit extra special as well. I think it hit him for the first time. He was very emotional on the news last night as well, just coming off stage, because I think when you've got your own people out there to celebrate, and you recognise the faces in the crowd, and
probably people who've been there for years or supported him, like local people from the shop, and say, go on, good luck, Shane, for like just wishing him well at every small tournament, and here he is coming ringing home, like the big one.
And it's the first time he'd seen quite a few of his family members since Sunday as well. And like, his granny, Emily Scanlon, has become a bit of a national story over the last few days, because she was singing on the Joe Duffy show. She was on a couple of news bulletins as well, just talking about...
The story about him eating the turf was the best.
And Tiger Woods is never asked to carry in the turf after he'd won the Mullingar Scratch as an amateur as well. Like, these are the people that keep you grounded in life, and they're the people you probably want to see. And I think one of the crests that Shane Lowry had was that he was just hoping to have half an hour or 40 minutes with his family before last night as well, just to see some of them, because he said, like, he saw his dad Brendan and his mum Bridgie for a little while on the green afterwards, but then everything kind of gets swept up after that, and you want to celebrate, and you have to do all the media things afterwards as well, just to get a chance maybe to have a quiet chance to sit down and have a chat with them, have a chat with his brother Alan, his sister as well, who were all there last night. And like, it was just, I guess, massive credit, I was saying last night, to Clara GA Club and to the people at Clara who organised this as well. For me, it was a celebration that befitted a major champion as well. Like, I don't think you'd see Brooks Koepka going back into his hometown and doing something like this if he was to win a major.
It'd be very unusual, for sure.
Yeah,
he certainly. Well, okay, I don't want to speak for Brooks Koepka.
It's a new look for golf, isn't it? It's a new look. It's a new look in this kind of realm of, not elitist sports, but like, you'd put it up there with, like, I don't know, golf, Formula One, rugby. They're kind of a different kind of. They're not like, your every man's sport, are they? They're not your like working class sport. And so for him to, like, he's such a down to earth guy, to do it like that, to come back to his people and present, and like you said, photographs, shaking hands.
He wears his crown very lightly, lads. That's one of the things about Lowry. He's not in any way, like, he was telling a story yesterday as well, that like he'd said to his management team that someone else had gone up to another major winner to look to get a flag signed, and they said no. And Lowry said to his manager, if I ever do that after what I did the weekend, hit me a smack.
So we've got a bit of content here from Monday, but also from the other amazing singing talents available on the night.
But yeah, perhaps his grandmother may have even been more impressive. Herself and his uncle Tommy were singing on stage last night.
It's that little town of Clara where the broad snow waters lie. Its matchless gems of beauty are rarely to be seen. Its ponds as pure as crystals, its fields are evergreen, and that old and ancient abbey of St. Bridget's Inn.
Made a note, Will.
Really can, and again, that's kind of a local moment where Clara gets serenaded in front of the people of Clara last night as well. And like, they closed the town yesterday at 3 o'clock. They knew what kind of crowd was going to turn up, and like, it's just amazing when you come in. Like, it was obviously helped by the fact that it was a lovely evening as well. The sun was out, warm temperatures. It seemed it was a 99 in one hand, can in the other. A very different evening meal, I think, for most people. And then, like, everyone, like, you talk about economic boost to a town, like, everybody, and lots of people came from outside. Like, I was spotting people like Brian Wheelahan, who I think it's a nice moment for Shane Lowry, because like, Shane's a massive fan of sport, and he would have been at the homecoming. He said he was at Tullamore in '98 when the hurling team came back. To have those guys gone out to celebrate him now, I'd imagine is a very humbling moment too. But like, everyone just had a fantastic night last night as well, and we were kind of sung out by the Offaly Rover at the end by Monday as well.
Yeah, let's have a listen to that.
We've been kind of needing something like this, I think, for a long time, especially County Offaly, because we had our many great years with football and hurling, but Shane has put us on a national level and an international level, and such a cool guy, such a very down-to-earth guy, and I'm just in awe of his cool head and, getting through it all, because it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that, like we were just saying there, that crowd there, that picture is just ridiculous. Like, it's almost bigger than the level of an All-Ireland win. Like, it's certainly on that level. It is something that, it's so unusual. Like, when we spoke to him a month ago, I was kind of putting the point to him that after he won in Abu Dhabi, there was kind of a real sense of happiness for him, kind of like people get happiness for supporting a team. That's very rare, and like Andy might have experienced this as well, that an individual actually gets that level of support. I don't know what it is about team sports that, I don't know, people might have played for that team at underage level, they might have had family members who might have played. Just the sheer strength in numbers means that more people support you. Whereas on an individual level, getting this level of support is truly extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, particularly, I was saying to Shane yesterday as well that, like, the fact that at Croke Park they were putting up the scores at half-time and full-time as to how he was doing at the Open. As he was saying, one of the greatest achievements he's had is that there were people watching golf on Sunday who probably wouldn't have normally watched golf.
It's all down to him, though. It's all down to him and his personality and the character that he is. It's not, if this was anybody, they wouldn't be getting this for Rory McIlroy. No. I don't know Rory McIlroy, he's probably a lovely guy, but Shane Lowry's always been the same person from day one, and
you're getting interrupted by Monday there.
Well, like, you're in the fight game, Andy, and obviously people have to hype things in terms of boxing and you're trying to build up a fight and so on. Like, Lowry has been remarkably humble and hasn't said anything out of turn really since Sunday, and I think that's one of the things that maybe people have been drawn to as well.
Yeah, but he's been like that since day one as well, hasn't he? I remember him coming in here. I was on the show that night, and he got clamped. Remember, he was coming in late. We were kind of on the phone to him, and he just parked the car outside because he was running late. Like, he didn't care, and he just come in, and then it ended up being clamped. So, and he didn't care. He's just always been down to earth, and I think that's the response people have had, and that's why he's drawn people to him like that. It's as much as the achievement as him being who he is.
I forgot about that, actually, the car clamped story. Just about afford to get clamped a few more times, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've 1.7 more in the bank since the weekend as well. So I think financial concerns are never going to be there for many more.
No, it's true. Good stuff, Will. Thanks, Willie, for popping in. There's probably going to be more Shane Lowry news again tomorrow and the day after. We're not going to stop talking about Shane Lowry at the top of the show for some time now.
Funny thing, you talk about him being emotionally. I wonder what part the 2 days in the pub had, with that kind of fragility, coming on facing how many thousands of people, and To
be honest, I'm pretty impressed he's been able to keep going to this point, because
seems really fresh.
Like, he was still in his golf gear when he arrived in Dublin on Sunday night. I think, Bo was telling us 3 hours, 4 hours sleep tops that they got between Sunday evening and Monday. Then they were back on it until that night, and then he could have got maybe 6 hours sleep before yesterday, and then went through a fairly long day as well. I tell you, he can outdrink most of them, and he can outparty most people as well. It's remarkable.
He certainly can, and he is on the back pages and a couple of the front pages once again for the third consecutive morning. This morning, we're getting to that in just a moment. Cian Healy is our 8 o'clock piece, or 8:15 actually, this morning. Will Fleury is going to join us at 9:20. He's an MMA fighter who we've been following closely here on OTBAM through the peaks and troughs of his career over the last year or so. So he's going to join us. He's won in the United States last week, so it'll be interesting to hear from him. The sports news then at 9:05. And then 9:15, Deal or No Deal. Before we get into the sports pages, have a look at this.
Join Off the Ball in Abu Dhabi this November 17th to 23rd for the inaugural Off the Ball Open. With flights from Dublin, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, golf on 2 championship courses, gala awards dinner, Peter Lowry golf clinic, and a live Off the Ball roadshow. You can also hang out with some special guests, including Kevin Kilban and Kieran Donaghy. The inaugural Off the Ball Open. Book now at CassidyTravel.ie and check out offtheball.com.
Going to start this morning with the Irish Independent, and it leads with Lowry targets Olympic gold with dream of leading team. You've also got a picture there of Tipperary celebrating with the trophy after winning the Borgosh Energy Munster Hurling Under-20 final. It was a dramatic finale at Temple Stadium last night, and you've got Dundalk preview as well. Perth wants positivity for Dundalk's car bag test. It is a mountain to climb for Dundalk, admittedly, but he does sound in positive form. And then another GAA story here. Quaid axed as Westmeath boss. So Westmeath GAA will tonight confirm the departure of their senior hurling manager Joe Quaid after just 1 year in charge.
Yeah, I've got the Irish Daily Mail here. They go with target Tokyo. Shane Lowry saying that he'd, putting his stepping forward as a candidate. He wants to represent Ireland, and that he would absolutely would carry the Irish flag if asked. And there's probably in with a good show, being the flag there at the opening ceremony now. So things go like everything's looking good for Shane Lowry, you know. Sort of the bits. Reds put Thomond naming rights up for grabs. That's kind of a commercial thing with Thomond Park, I guess. And Cody says Limerick are no copycats, but similarities are there to see. That's in reference to Limerick hurling, who play on Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Big match.
Try and get your tickets.
Yeah, I'm put the message into Adrian and Joe.
I think you were on with us a couple of mornings after the semi-final win against Cork last year, and that was a moment where it's like, this is insane. This is absolutely incredible. The way the game went after the extra time and all that. Nicky Quaid's ridiculous save. That almost felt, I'd imagine, from your perspective, like an All-Ireland win.
It was, and it was a turning point. I'd been to a couple of other matches, but they're always sitting back. This time I was actually right there in the park, right beside them, in Croke Park, and. You're just taken aback by the level of skill and the drama.
Yeah, it's one of the best weekends in the hurling calendar. Is the new semi-finals weekend with them both on the same weekend. It was brilliant last year and hopefully brilliant again this year. I'll be big in Japan, says the headline on the back of the Irish Daily Star this morning. Lowry's on a mission for Tokyo. Knock 'em out, lads, says the headline then in Ireland against Portugal, which is of course in Yerevan at 3 o'clock today in the European Under-19 Championships. That's a picture there of Oisin McEntee with boxing gloves on. I've been trying to figure out, because we have Andy in studio, if Oisin McEntee is like a former boxer or anything like that. To be honest with you,
technique looks good though.
His technique does look good. Well, to my eyes, it looks good. But even if you're saying it must be excellent, it turns out if you actually take out all the text on the picture and zoom it out a little bit, he's actually just on one of those boxing machines. But there's another picture that we have on the back page of him with his hands up in clenched fists, and there's other pictures of him still in the boxing gloves. So maybe there is something that we're missing here. But certainly it seems that the only time he's actually worn gloves is when he's previously been a goalkeeper. A couple of other things then on the back of the Irish Daily Star. Adeleke strikes Baku gold. It's the European Youth Olympics. She's absolutely flying it, and she won gold again in the 100 metres last night. Longstaff bid upped. We'll get into this in deal or no deal later on. Manchester United ready to step up their efforts in a bid to sign Sean Longstaff from Newcastle United. And Connacht's got a Paul. So Aaron Gallan talking about Paul Connacht. Paul Connacht was 33 years old, which I didn't know. I thought he's a bit older. He obviously was involved in Clare 5 years ago, which means he was 28 years old. I don't want to be ageist in the other way, but for a 28-year-old to have such an impact on a coaching setup with a team that managed to scale those heights like Clare in 2013 is remarkable. So he's still in the early throes of his coaching career and has been a vital cog in that Limerick setup.
Yeah, I've got the son, and you mentioned the fists. Here he is here, but it's a story about Tom Owen saying that you take to it like a duck to water. Ireland play Portugal in the semi-final under 19s today. You can watch it on RT2 at 3 p.m. And the headline is Baby Ducks do, and then Baby Shark down here in relation to Shane Lowry saying that he had the hit kids song going on his, and I can relate to this.
Yeah.
They call it an earworm, but it's a brainworm. Like I'll find myself just walking around the street all day and just singing, rain, rain, go away, come again, whatever it may be, But this Baby Shark one, I don't know who wrote it, but it's a phenomenon, and kids just go crazy for it. And it's the simplest song in the world, but it's catchy, He
said he was driving to the course on Sunday and they had to play it for his daughter, so that she'd behave en route to the course, and it was just in his head all day while winning the Open.
That'll tell you how down to earth he is. I'm sure if there was Tiger Woods, there would be no Baby Shark going on. It'd be positive reaffirmation. But that's basically it. Something about Uri Emery saying he's thrown in the towel on Arsenal's title challenge 16 days before the season kicks off, which is probably a bit much. I think it's probably fake news. Fake news. Do we report fake news?
We always report fake news. It's still news. Back page of the Mirror this morning is Let the Games Begin. Lowry Eye's leading role and the medal at Tokyo Olympics. And Brian Kerr says the FAI board are a disgrace. He says they don't seem to understand. They're like fellas in the bunker in the war. They think they're all right in where they are, and the outside world doesn't affect them until the bomb hits the bunker and they're gone. He's talking about Donald Conway and Noel Fitzroy and how they're planning to stay on in their positions with the FAI board. The AGM is this weekend.
The Herald Sport, Lukaku out of luck. It's just referring to time nearly up for improve offer. We've United in the race to buy Maguire. It's a funny situation with United. It kind of doesn't seems to be rudderless. So they don't really have a clear direction of where they're going. You know, I mentioned Longstaff, Maguire, and then Lukaku. They're trying to offload him. You know, they came in with a bid for £54 million, with 60 million euros. Probably would have took it, would you? I'm not sure.
For Harry Maguire?
For Lukaku.
For Lukaku, sorry, Inter, yeah.
Yeah.
He probably would have. I'm actually surprised that they didn't, and I'm surprised that he's still there. And you get to the point now where
with the wages he's on, and he's getting old. He's actually, you can't fault him in his performances. It's just that does he suit the style of play in terms of that he's a heavier, more robust centre forward. He's not fast or dynamic like the likes of Rashford though.
Well, I'd agree with that. I think that he doesn't look good in that team, and his particular sets of talents haven't been utilised to perfection by Manchester United in recent times. The Times goes with Great Britain stars doping protest. This is a very interesting story that's developing from Korea at the World Championships. Duncan Scott protested against the presence of Sun Yang. So he's a 22-year-old from Glasgow, received a bronze medal several yards away from Sun Yang, and declines to have his picture taken alongside the Chinese swimmer. The videos of this is remarkable. So you have Sun Yang in the middle with his gold medal, and then Scott standing beside him getting his bronze medal. Sun Yang goes over, shakes the silver medalist's hand, goes over and shakes the other bronze medalist's hand, then goes to shake Scott's hand, and Scott just completely blanks him, just doesn't look at him whatsoever. The other three lads go over to take their picture, and Scott stays where he is, poses with his medal about 10 yards away from where the other three are. Sun Yang says to him, "You're a loser, I'm a winner." So this is at the end of their 200-metre freestyle final. This is about Yang's checkered history, I think it's fair to say, when it comes to...
So Scott's taken the moral protest, kind of standing away from them.
And it's been done, as far as I'm aware, this was a feature of Rio as well. And it wasn't just Sun Yang that people voiced concerns about. There was other swimmers as well from around the world. So the swimming community is certainly a community that's not afraid to voice its own concerns, even when your own competitor is in the water. So it's an interesting one. I think fair play to Scott on that. Another one actually here that's kind of related is Stuart Fraser saying SW19 qualifier failed drugs test. So this is Beatriz Haddad Maia, the world number 99 from Brazil, tested positive during the Croatia Open in Ball in June. So she tested positive for selective androgen receptor modulators, which were developed by companies as an alternative to anabolic steroids. So she's going to get a ban. And then Joelinton has become the first signing of the Steve Bruce era at Newcastle United, 40 million quid, club record.
Irish Examiner Sports, tipping the scales. Last Premier goal breaks Cork's heart. I think that's the under-20 final there in the hurling. And Larry's saying that he looks to kick on now. And that's another point. What does he do now, Shane Lowry, going forward after this major success? Like, what does it put pressure on him? Does he get confidence? Even get getting over the celebration and this kind of newfound fame and recognition. Not that he wasn't famous before.
But it's stratospheric now.
Yeah.
Like the Golf Channel going wall to wall with Shane Lowry Mania on Saturday, Sunday. It's just such an unusual thing.
Does he, I don't know. Just thinking that off the top of your head like that, you'd probably take a month or two off and then come back later in the year, to competition and just try and be fresh and kind of put this behind you. But
the beauty of it is
he wants to kick on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The beauty of it is that it's the last major of the year. It's not like he's got another one next month that he's got to knuckle down for or anything like that.
Wasn't he due to be playing this week in a competition?
In Memphis, but he's decided not to do that. And he's going to take a bit of time off, actually. But there is a lot of money to be made at the end of the season, obviously, with the FedEx Cup and anybody who might be involved in that, or even on the European Tour, there's a couple of big events as well. So it's interesting to see what happens next year, really. I think he will be able to back it up. I think we will see him in contention at majors again. The back page of the Racing Post this morning goes with Awesome Foursome, top tips for all this week's golf tournaments. The front page is Elliot Keane on Mate as he prepares hefty team for Galway, and Connell to embark on new role as trainer. That's regarding Barry Connell. You got the Guardian, I think?
I've got the Guardian here. The headline is the Ashes. I guess that's happening now, is it?
Yes, down the line. Well, the thing is,
don't need to panic.
This is disrespectful to Ireland, right? This whole talk about the Ashes, because England are talking about playing Australia in the Ashes, but they've got a bloody big Test match starting this morning against Ireland at Lord's. So focus on these 3 days, England, before you start focusing in on the Ashes. There's a sleeping giant waiting to take you out in the home of cricket.
this, Andy, well, the Open showed Ireland deserve its place in the sun. So why are the EBC treating them like guinea pigs with a 4-day test? So what's that in reference to?
They'd be testing them out, I guess, before you actually make the Ashes team. They're going to try out a couple of the one-day international players, one of the heroes, a few of the heroes from the World Cup before they actually see if they're good enough to actually play Australia in the Ashes. So they're using us as a training regime, Andy. The Irish Times leads with our O'Shea's column. Rochford factor can add more fuel to Mayo's fire. So presumably he's tipping Mayo to potentially win on Sunday week. All the build-up to that coming next week, really. The Daily Telegraph goes with a bit more of a respectful line to Ireland on their cricket headline. Root sees this moment. Captain tells England to ride wave of World Cup euphoria into Ireland Test. And then the Ashes. That's right. Ireland is before the Ashes. We're going to get into some of the stories. There's a couple of things we want to touch on. The first thing we want to touch on, because it's across the papers really, is this idea of 12 months to Tokyo. We're now officially 1 year out from the 2020 Olympics, which means we're also 15 years away from Athens. We might touch on that in a moment. But while you're here, just on the Irish boxing team and how we are fixed for this time next year, are you confident?
In the talent, yes. Now, recently Joe Waters turned pro, so that's a big void to be filled. But there are guys ready to step in there. This year's heavyweight champion, I was speaking to him, his name's Tony Brown. He fights out of Inchicore. He's planning on moving to 81. There also might be a comeback for Michael O'Reilly, the middleweight boxer from Rio who tested positive before Rio. And in some, I know he failed. I don't think with him failing, testing positive, I think it was more down to naivety and looking to cut corners in training than actually anything malicious or trying to get an advantage in a sense. And in some ways, I think about that young lad O'Reilly, and his kind of careers fell apart since then. And his kind of life spiraled out of control a little bit, and in some ways it was handled badly. In terms of he was kind of thrown under the bus a little bit. He's only 19 at the time. It's a mistake that any young kid can make, and there doesn't seem to be a way back for him. But
what have you heard? As in, I
heard that he's training and that he's looking to find some. I think his life and his stability was kind of centered around boxing, and when that was taken away from him, he kind of lost control a little bit. But that's by and by. But there is a huge depth of talent there. To get back to your question, and we have a European champion now in Kirk Walker. Brendan Irvine is an Olympian. He'll be coming back and looking to qualify. Michael Nevin, who won a bronze medal, he's an excellent boxer. And then we have the females like Grania Walsh, Kelly Harrington, and there's quite a few there. Amy Broadhouse that will be pushing for qualification. Where they're at in terms of the governance, it's up in the air because AIBA, who have ran boxing, have had their status as an Olympic governing body suspended. And the IOC it was appealed recently and they upheld the suspension. So usually the qualifiers would be taking place now. The boxers would be getting ready for qualification, and in September they go to Russia for the World Championships, and then there's the European Championships to follow, and those two competitions would be the qualifications, and there might be one more after that. But the IOC have taken over the running of boxing for the Olympics, and it's still unclear who's actually going to referee these fights and judge these fights and stage these fights, because AIBA will not be involved. So the plan is, what they've said is that there will be one qualifying tournament for every continent, one in Africa, one in Europe, one in North America, South America, Oceania and Asia, and the boxers will be selected from there that will go to the Olympics, and it's going to be held in February and March of 2020, so right up to the Olympics. And they actually mentioned that there might be one final qualifier in Tokyo before the pre-games, so that's remarkable. That's less than ideal. Yeah. For a competition like boxing, where you have to kind of time your peak and prepare for fights, it means that these guys will have to be at their peak for qualifying in February, March, April, and then almost up to the games, which is in August. It's hard to judge that. So for like Zoran Tierra and Bernard Dunn, they'll have that, and John Conlon, they'll have their hands full with arranging this. But maybe it's not as complicated as it seems from the outside. Maybe they've got it all under control, but there is some uncertainty, and I think that probably played a big part in Joe Ward turning pro, because he's looking at this. Would have been a favourite for a medal after being at.
He would have had
Rio.
hopes for gold. Let's face it.
He wouldn't have. That would have been his goal, a realistic goal for him. And then there's no chance of it even happening. And then this offer comes in for him to turn pro. So
because like turning pro in the year 2019 is a weird one. Fair enough if you turn pro right after an Olympic Games, or you're like, oh, I can't be bothered with the full 3 or 4 year slog of an Olympic cycle. The end was in sight.
Especially when he had been he's medalled at every major competition since he was a kid. You know, the Olympics was the only one that he didn't in 16.
It's not a great endorsement for amateur boxing.
It's not, but for Joe, I think there was a certain amount of money there, and there was a contract offered to him, and it was more of a certainty than the Olympics. Boxing not being at the Olympics, and then what does he do after that? Are the offers still there? So, with boxing, in terms of the quality, in terms of medal possibilities, boxing will still be the favourite sport for Ireland to get a medal in when it comes to the Olympics.
I just want to come back to Michael O'Reilly a little bit, because I didn't actually expect to hear that this morning. I don't think it's actually been mentioned before that he might actually be in with a shout of being brought back into the fold. And
I don't know. No, this is not an official thing where he'd be brought into the high performance.
But it's certainly in the idea of people in Irish boxing.
Wants to enter. I heard that there's talk that he'll enter the national championships and try and qualify.
Okay. It's an interest. Just to kind of recap a couple of the details here. Johnny Waterson writing in February last year. So he got this ban for 4 years last year only. So he tested positive for a performance-enhancing anabolic steroid. Won bronze in Doha 2015, gold in European Games in Baku in the same year. And then obviously we all know what happened in Rio. Sent home when a urine sample he provided in July of that year tested positive for methandionone. So he was notified of the positive test results on August 4th, suspended on the 5th before being removed from the athlete's village in Rio. So he was the first Irish boxer to be sent home from an Olympic Games for testing positive for a banned substance, and the first Irish boxer to be given a 4-year suspension from the sport for a doping offence. The panel investigating the positive finding concluded that the 24-year-old had not discharged the burden of proving that his admitted anti-doping rule violation was not intentional, and they therefore deemed it intentional and accordingly imposed a 4-year period of ineligibility as is required by the Irish Sports Council anti-doping rules. Now this is an interesting one, because to be completely honest, if in a hypothetical situation, if an Irish boxer came up against a boxer from another country in the Olympic Games who had previously served a 4-year doping ban for an anabolic steroid, I would be furious. As an Irish sports fan, I would be absolutely furious that boxer would be allowed to get back in the ring. So it's hard for me to actually get behind this possibility.
I know, I'm not and as an athlete, you're fully aware of what you should be, and in the high performance, you're told about everything. Do not take anything. The only sympathy I have with him is that he's a 19-year-old kid, and there's always a human behind the story. It's behind the act. And I just sympathise him with how his life has gone just by doing something so stupid, so stupid, and the ramifications of it. But I guess it's a lesson for everybody or any of those other young boxers that this is what will happen, But
I'd be very interested to see the reaction to this. Now, granted, you're only kind of speculating this.
Yeah, I don't even know.
We don't know for sure. We can't say at all that the IABA is considering this or anything.
There's not even. He wouldn't even be taken back into the high performance team. But he's thinking about coming back and boxing in the Irish Championship.
It's an interesting one, though, and to be fair, what you're saying there, it does sound like there's a couple of prospects, 12 months down the line, we might be in decent shape. But I did say at the start of the slot, I know you're reluctant to get into it, but while we're on the topic of Olympics, I wanted to kind of touch back on Athens a small bit, if that's okay, because even just kind of going through it this morning and seeing your own path through Athens, it's something that wouldn't have been important to you at the time because you would have been disappointed with yourself losing. What do you remember of the gold medal fight in Athens 2004 in your weight class? Golovkin getting beaten.
He fought a guy named Guy Debekov, who was a Russian, who I'd fought previous that year in February of 2004 and had a very close fight with him. It was an excellent fight, but Guy Debekov just had that. He was a very, not languid, but he had a kind of relaxed, laid-back style, that amateur Russian style that was going around in those days, where he would stand in front of him and lean back and then punch, counter punch. It was a close fight. But Golovkin, I think was almost better as an amateur than he is now as a pro. He was an animal as an amateur, knocked out most people, like, and he just had this kind of that Mike Tyson kind of air about him where most people were beat before they got in there because they knew they couldn't handle him. But yeah, the Olympics, like when you look at my weight division in the Olympics, there's been like, just from that one division, 75 kilograms, there's been several world champions come out of that. You got Golovkin, Jean Pascal, Anthony Durrell, a German Lukas Vilicek, the Hungarian, the guy called Karl Bolzai, the guy who actually beat me, Hassan Endam, and there's probably a few more. That's 6, and all those guys from the one weight category went on to become world champions, and there's probably a few more that escape me at the moment. But
how good was Endam?
Endam he's athletic. He recently beat Martin Murray, in a title eliminator, so he's still doing it, But he lost to Callum Smith there, which was probably a step too far, and probably the end of his career. And Dan was good, and a style which he had a good game plan, better game plan than I had, in terms of I was strictly a counterpuncher, and any fight that I had seen him fight previous to that, and he was an aggressive fighter. But with me, he just went on the back foot. He wouldn't approach me, he wouldn't come forward, wouldn't throw the first punch, and so he made me box out of my game plan in terms of being a counterpuncher. And I came back to the corner, I think I was six points down at the first round, and after that it was always a struggle to get it back. But I think the fight ended 27-all. It went to a count back, and he got the decision. So it was tough exit, tough way to get out of there.
Yeah. You wrote about it in your book as well a bit, 2004. It must be kind of a mad thing, the Olympics, kind of representing the country while also trying to maintain this tunnel vision of high performance. Like, the tournament nature of amateur boxing is completely different, I'd imagine.
Well, in a way, you kind of put the Olympics on this pedestal as, this thing that you're working for 4 years, and that you think when you get the validation that it's going to be, that you'll feel fulfilled in some ways. But really, when you break it down, it's the same boxers you've been boxing against in every tournament that you go to. The competitions are run in the exact same way, so there's no difference really. And I didn't really get that Olympic buzz because my fight was the next day. My first fight was the next day after the ceremony, so I didn't go to the opening ceremony. I had to box the next morning, and then I had a week of waiting in the village till my next fight, a full week. And I think I had won the first fight, looked pretty good against Alfredo Angulo, who went on to become world champion as a pro as well. I beat him, and then in the week that happened, a lot of the Irish competitors were losing, and there was more attention being put on me that I could actually beat this guy, because I was probably favoured to beat Endam. And I think that week didn't. If I could have fought him a couple of days later, I think I would have probably beat him. But I just think the week was probably a bit too much, and put too much pressure on myself. And then had the fight out of it, the few days later, and then I go to the closing ceremony, and then I'm like, oh, so this is what it's like. This is the Olympics. Like, I left the opening ceremony buzzing. I got on the flight home and I was buzzing. I kind of had that Olympic feeling. I felt the Olympic spirit, whatever it is. But it wasn't until it was over. It wasn't until it was over. You know what I mean?
And was it after the Olympics you went on the Den with Dustin?
That would have been before or pre-Olympics. So it's time we got that loud enough.
It just dawned on me. It's just the image of you in your Ireland tracksuit.
Tommy, you missed one there.
We might get it up before the end of the show. We want to stick with one other story. We want to stick with boxing for one more story. It's really terrible news from the boxing community yesterday, really. Maxim Dadashev passed away. Like, for anybody who missed this, because I know you were talking about this in Off the Brawl, he was in hospital for the past couple of days after injury sustained on a fight on Friday night, only passing away yesterday. So the context of this has been spoken about for some days, but it's only really been hammered home after the tragedy of yesterday. We recorded yesterday and it'll go out tonight on Off the Brawl, and at that point it hadn't been announced that he had passed away. There's been a few of these in recent times, and fortunately the fighters have pulled through. I'm not sure the quality of life varies after an injury like this, but there was always a risk, but there was no hints that this guy wouldn't pull through, that it was a medically induced coma,
that they'd removed part of his skull to relieve the pressure, that he was there was some bleeding on the brain, and that what had happened previously, that these guys pulled through. You know, Adonis Stevenson was the most recent one for it to happen to. That was in December of last year. And it's a tragic loss, and it's a reminder for everyone that, you know, the dangers of boxing. But you know, it puts things into context. Like recently, Jason Quigley, this week, the same weekend, the same night, Jason Quigley lost the fight. He was pulled out after the 9th round by his corner, in the same way that Dadjasev had been pulled out. Unfortunately, like, I'm sure Jason now he's probably feeling hurt by the loss, but I think that would put things into context, that he's still got his health and that he's still here.
Yeah.
Because there's always that risk when you step into the ring.
And what makes this very interesting is that the Dadjasev was obviously up against Gabriel Matthias. That was the fight that he had on Friday night. We might actually just play some of the audio to kind of put this into context. And this is kind of the extra layer of the story, because he had obviously never lost a professional boxing match when he entered the ring on Friday at the MGM. It was on at the MGM National Harbour Resort in Oxon Hill. So we can have a listen to this clip from Friday night in Maryland. It's the Dadjasev's trainer, Buddy McGirt, letting him know that he's about to stop the fight.
I'm going to stop the fight. Max, I'm going to stop it. Max, you're getting hit too much. You're getting hit too much, Max. Please, Max, please, let me do this, okay? Okay? Look at me. Please. Please, you're getting hit too much, Max. If I don't, they're going to do it. You understand me? If I don't, the referee's going to do it. Please. Please, Max. Come on, Max, please. Come on, you got to be honest with me, man. Doc, actually stop it, Doc. That's it. That's it.
It's not an easy listen, that.
It's not, and what you can see is that Dadjasev's obviously Russian, and Buddy McGirt's talking to him, but he's also talking to the interpreter and trying to communicate what's going on. And what you can see is the lack of reaction from Dadjasev. You know, that it's just there's nothing behind the eyes, that he's kind of he's quite vacant in his response, and that's always, you know, a worrying sign. And what, like, it brings up several things, like in boxing, like the same weekend on Saturday night there was a fight in England with David Price and David Allen, and a fight which actually David Allen was the favourite going into, and the story with the fight was that, well, what people thought would happen was that David Price might win the early rounds, but then later on David Allen will come on and pressure him, and that would be where he'd do his best work later on in the fights. And so early in the fight, David Allen was taking a lot of punches with the hope of coming on later, but it didn't seem like it was going to turn. And then after 10 completed rounds, David Allen said in the corner, "Look, I've had enough." And Darren Barker, along with David Allen, Darren Barker is his coach, said, "We're pulling you out." And he said, "Yeah, I've had enough." And David Allen got quite a lot of criticism for pulling himself out of a fight. And in boxing, there's this, not unwritten word, there's this mantra that we go out on our shield, that you don't quit, that you'll have to, you'll have to carry me out of the ring. And I think that has to be changed now. It has to be, this belief has to be changed. And I think coaches have to be a lot more vigilant as well. Buddy McGirt, unfortunately, like, he thought he was trying to save his fighter. He probably never thought his life would probably save him for another day. You know, that don't take this punishment now because it will affect your career long term. Come back another day when you're feeling better and you might win a fight. But like, so Dave Allen takes a lot of criticism from pulling himself out. He had said some comments himself about Anthony Joshua's fight, and said that Anthony Joshua quit and that he would never quit. And no, he does quit, and he takes a lot of stick. There's a guy who doesn't want to quit, Dadjasev, and look what happens to him. He goes on longer than he should have, fought longer, and then loses his life. And when you look at it compared to MMA, the kind of shaming that's around boxing when someone quits, compared to MMA, look at Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz, he tapped out. There's no shame. There was no one calling him a quitter. There's no one calling him a coward, which happens in boxing all the time. Two guys who reached, like Guillermo Rigondeaux, one of the greatest amateur fighters and world champion as a professional, quit, complaining with a shoulder injury, but more or less quit in a fight against Lomachenko, and has never been given the same opportunities, never been looked at in the same way by fight fans and boxing industry people. They just say that he quit. Same with Nicholas Walters, who in a fight with Lomachenko said, "I've had enough, I can't win," and quit. Those guys are still here today. No, Dajicev's not here, you know, and that's the reality. Like, that's the stark reality of this whole situation, and this whole mantra that if a fighter quits, that like the shaming of a fighter who quits, and they feel that they can't quit, even though they know it's a perilous situation, that they can't win, that it's going on, they're only going to take more punishment. Like, I just think that there has to be some change in that. First of all, a change that if you lose, it's not the end, and if you quit, it's not the end, you know. And I don't know. A fighter should never have to quit himself anyway. A coach should always be there to see that he's had enough, and the coach shouldn't ask. Even with Buddy McGirt kind of pleading there, in a way, it's not a good. A coach should always just say, "Look, that's it. You're done. I'm done. I'm calling the fight. You've lost the fight. You're taking too much punishment. There's no way you're going to win." No, once your fighter is capable of what he can sustain, and pull him out. But it's just, you know, it's just a tragic loss. And he was a young man, 28 years old, and not like 13 fights, undefeated, a prospect, ranked number 3 in the world by the IBF. So he's not like he was a veteran or a journeyman. This is a good young fighter with a huge future. And you know, I tweeted a piece last night from ESPN, and how Dajicev had spoke about bringing his family to America and wanting to be, you know, become an American citizen.
He was fighting for a green card.
Fighting for his family and his future. And this is just one of the saddest losses that, you know, but this happens in boxing, and you know, the thing like that, and you have to look at not that you can point the blame at anybody for this. Certainly you can't, but the kind of protocols around boxing injuries, and the you know, in this piece, because I haven't watched the fight, because I don't want to watch the fight. You know, I don't want to see the fight. I had seen the piece with Buddy McGirt in the corner, and it refers to him still being on the stool 3 minutes after the decision, after he'd been pulled out, was made, and then talks about him getting down, and had to sitting on the steps, not being able to make it to the change room from the ring by himself, and then he's taken on a stretcher, and he loses consciousness in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I don't know what can be done, but when a fighter is stopped in a ring, they should always err on the medical side, should always err on the side of caution, and be extreme in their measures and procedures and what they do, just to guarantee the safety, and that all that can be done is done. Like, it's just I don't even want to be talking about the situation, you know, and there's no good outcome in this, you know. But I think the boxing community and the boxing fans, they need to change the way they look at boxing, and this attitude of never quit, go out on the shield. How do you change that culture? This is it here. This is what we're looking at now. To remind people of this, that's a young man has lost his life in the ring by not wanting to show for pride, you know, not show that he was beat, and to keep fighting when there was no hope of winning. And even but this fight, you know, it's like, and it's a fight that, like, this happened in a similar situation. Chris Eubank Jr. fought a guy called Nick Blackwell. Nick Blackwell was a good young prospect, good young fighter. And in that fight, as long as what seems in this fight with Dajicev, that at no point in the fight was there ever a chance for it to be stopped. He was like Nick Blackwell in the fight with Chris Eubank, was always competing, even though he was never getting never getting the best of the rounds. He was still punching back and still within a fighting chance. Maybe not winning the fight going down towards the end, but knocking them out or pulling something out of the bag. That's always the hope. And the same thing. He ends up in a coma, and his life has been affected by it. You know, fortunately he's still here and still alive. He didn't pay the ultimate price, but his life's been hugely affected by that loss. I don't know. It just something has to, like, because across all sports, but in boxing as well, conditioning now, the fighters are getting faster, stronger, fitter, and can sustain power punching for longer. And the human brain hasn't changed in all the time, but in 200,000 years, you know. So, something has to be looked at, I think.
Did that ever run through your mind when you were boxing that I'm in a bit of trouble here? For my own good, for my family's well-being, I need to step out of this?
No, but towards the end of my career, my last two fights, so I suppose, I had those thoughts. I had those thoughts that if anything bad was happening, but I didn't. And when the fights were, when I was in there, when I was dropped by Billy Joe Saunders, I fought. You know, when I should have held, I kept fighting and got dropped again and fought on. And the two major fights I had towards the end, not my last fight, but with Quillen and with Saunders, after being, like, Quillen dropped me, I think it was, I don't even remember the round, I think it was the first round. And I don't recall or remember any of the fight until the last round, until around 11. I remember getting off the stool in round 11 and asking Adam, how's the fight going? Am I in the fight? Should I go for a knockout? And he said, no, just keep boxing, you're in the fight. And I ended up getting a draw. And with Saunders, he dropped me in the third round. And I boxed. And again, I don't recall the fight. I recall the decision. And them just read, I didn't know had I won or lost, but I had boxed the remaining 9 rounds, and them calling that I'd lost the majority decision, majority draw decision to Billy Joe Saunders. These things happen, like, and it's when I see that the adversary in the corner, he's not responsive, that his coach is talking to him, but he's not taking in what's being said. That's how I was in those fights with Quillen, certainly, because Adam had said to me, I was talking to you and I wasn't getting nothing back, but I just kept nodding and saying, I'm okay. It's so mad. It's mad. But I like, touch wood, I met it out, and I didn't get hurt in my career.
Because I was watching Max Kellerman on ESPN yesterday talking about being at the fight and saying that there was no sort of physical sign, especially in the way he was fighting, that things would get this grave. Like, to put it bluntly to you, Andy, you showed the exact same symptom on that night that this boxer who's now dead showed.
Quillen, if Adam had pulled me out, and there were times when, even when I was in the corner, the referee was coming over and saying, are you okay, Andy, okay? And I was just saying, yes, I'm okay. And the commission was looking in, and in New York, they're quite stringent, they're very stringent, like, they're quite strict. Any sign of trouble and they'll stop the fight. But I wanted to fight, and you keep fighting. That's what we do. But as seen, it's not always the best thing.
No, for sure. It is a piece worth your time, as Andy tweeted out what Maxim Dadashev was fighting for. It's by Mark Riegel on the ESPN website. It was written before he died, so it's kind of got a very haunting tone about him. 28 years old, Maxim Dadashev, passed away yesterday. It is 29 minutes past 8 this morning on OTBAM, the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. OTBAM is sponsored by Avantcard, powered by MasterCard, and MMA fighter Will Fleury will be with us before 9 a.m. But next, it's Irish and Leinster rugby star Cian Healy. Back after these.
Placing a bet during the Galway Festival? Then look no further than Bruce Betting. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In-store, online, and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie.
All right, I'm delighted to say that Cian Healy is in studio with us this morning. He's celebrating Bullseye's arrival in Ireland. You can bring the best of American barbecue to your backyard this summer with Bullseye's range of authentic American barbecue sauces and glazes. And for anybody watching us online, you can see the 3 different flavours of Bullseye. Cian Healy, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
What we've got here is we've got the dark beer flavour. Furthest away from me, we've got the original in the middle, and your personal favourite, I think.
Smoky bacon.
Smoky bacon. Why is that one the best?
It's just nice flavour, I think. I've had it on its own, and I've had it mixed with the original one on beef ribs, and it's another level.
It smells amazing.
Yeah.
Tommy was asking me to drink some of the barbecue.
Have a taste.
We go for it? We can cut this out afterwards if this doesn't go well, you know.
Oh, you're slugging. Oh, go for it.
Wow. Yeah, so did I. That would have been a way better idea to just dip my finger in. I actually just drank a bit of barbecue sauce. Eyes are watering, but it's amazing. How are you?
Very good.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
So what are we at? The 23rd of July, 2019. What point of pre-season are we at now?
We are at a point where we are all out of the hotel for a week. It's kind of a download week, but you're given a schedule to go through, so you just have to get through all the sessions and hit all your markers, and it's kind of get away from camp and be at home for a bit.
And what do you do when you're at home? Is it kind of keeping your mind off things, anything but rugby at that point, or what is it?
Bit of everything. Usually when I get out of the hotel, fitting for today, I'm dying to get cooking. So put in a couple of days of that, and then if I have time, I'll disappear into my man shed for a while, get the dogs out and about. Nothing too hectic. It's kind of energy conservation at that point.
Right, okay. And has this pre-season been a real ratcheting up fitness-wise, or has it just been kind of a maintenance of what you'd already built up come the end of last season?
No, it's a lot of fitness, a lot of strength-based stuff, a lot of the kind of smaller detail stuff, so bits of core or rehabs or prehabs. But now we're fairly foot to the floor with getting fitter. We had a off-season fitness plan for our holidays, and that was to make sure you arrived in shape and look after yourself during your break, and then just got ramped up a few notches.
It seems like, especially when pre-season started, like an extraordinarily long pre-season before the World Cup. I guess in the Southern Hemisphere they have the Rugby Championship and they have that game-by-game way of keeping things fresh. How do you keep it fresh in the Irish camp?
Well, this setup, what they're doing is the two in camp, one out. So this week is a freshener for everyone to get home or go on holidays and just have that training under the belt still. So mix of that, and then in camp we've had good activity days and keeping things quite light-hearted. We don't need to get too bogged down in rugby stuff at the moment, because it's kind of physically preparing and mentally preparing, and then in the next couple of weeks we'll start looking over the finer details of oppositions and ourselves and how we need to put a plan in place.
So the opposition analysis hasn't really started at all yet?
Probably on the coach's side, very little on the players' side. You know, we're pretty busy with the schedule we've been given, so we're mainly getting fit and getting strong enough to be in a position to play against that opposition.
It's very interesting looking at the last couple of years of your career. Obviously, you've spoken at length about your own injuries and how you've managed to come back from that, and the new body shape that you've managed to come back with, a better version of Cian Healy perhaps, or certainly a different version of Cian Healy than we've ever had. Is that in your thinking when you come back from pre-season? I guess you can't allow yourself to go through the summer in too much of a relaxed state anymore, because do you have to look after yourself a little bit more nowadays?
It was just a full lifestyle change on everything. I enjoy looking after myself more, and I enjoy doing sessions in my off time, doing a bit of fitness and testing myself, and they guided us with a couple of fitness tests with kind of score ranks where we should be aiming for, so I was at that for most of the summer. But for the most part, I'd be looking at fitness people on Instagram and copying their workouts and maxing myself against them, and just little bits like that. It's something I enjoy, so it's not so much of a chore for me anymore.
So you're looking at what people are doing on Instagram and saying, I can do just as good as that person?
Well, there's a few that are ridiculous. So
who are we talking here?
There's one fella, Garage Athlete.
Right.
He's another level. He does sick workouts, so kind of look at them and tone them down maybe a little bit the odd time and try and chase some of his numbers, but it's tough.
What do you constitute a sick workout now?
Just bad rowing or burpee based stuff or anything like that. Heavy fitness on the machines. Like, they're quite long sessions.
Right, okay.
It's not a 15-20 minute, it's 40-50 minute.
And is that beneficial?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's not as opposed to more interval based things.
Oh, like, they all have their benefits, but when you're not playing games and you're in your off season, I think it's good to push yourself to a pretty sick place and not forget what that's like, because it's going to come around and you're going to have to go into games, and that's the place you have to go to. So it's just changing up the stimulus a little bit and trying different things.
It's very interesting because some athletes are way better at enjoying being in that dark place, as some people describe it, the place where you're suffering, and everybody will get to that point in the championship minutes of a game, especially when it comes to this year's World Cup. Do you enjoy it more than other people?
I used to hate it, and Mick Carney, that was at Leinster, slowly dragged me into it.
How did he do that?
Started to enjoy it because he was doing sessions, and he was kind of flicking me on his numbers, and so I was like, oh man, why would you do that to yourself? And slowly I started chipping at me, thinking, I'll give it a bash. I'll give it a bash when I have a bit more time. So I'm converted.
And when you first give it a bash, what's that like?
First time is usually hell. It's tough. Your kind of lungs are burning and falling off the rowing machine at the end of it. But you start to figure out technique and rhythm and get a bit better at it.
Is there a particular thing going through your head in terms of motivation at that point when you're trying to push yourself beyond that limit?
No, it's on the rower one anyway. I'd be looking at time-based stuff, or on the air bike it'd be calorie-based stuff. So you kind of just keep an eye on that and keep an eye on the breathing and look after that. And
so if you see a target, basically, that's motivation enough for you to go after that?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Okay, that's a pretty good way to be.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask, like I mentioned there, in terms of how you managed to change your body shape and body composition over the last couple of years. I just saw a statistic that your weight at the last World Cup was 125 kg. I'm not sure if that's correct.
27.
127. What's your target for this year's World Cup, or what's the ballpark?
I'm not really looking to change that much. I'm at anything from 111 to 115 now. So like mine can just go up and down in a couple of days. So if I'm during the week around 112, and then before the game I'll probably ramp it up to 115, 116 with the big carb load and fueling up the day before and plenty of hydration. But I kind of stopped massively worrying about weight when I got it back down, and more started thinking about how I feel and if I feel prepped and if the body feels good and limber. So that's kind of knocks on into the extra mobility sessions you're doing and how well you're looking after yourself with recovery and stuff like that.
Do you feel much better now than you did this time 4 years ago?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't say how I felt 4 years ago now, but yeah, that was a grim enough place to be in, and being massively unfit and not having a hand that was in great working order, and probably not strong enough in some areas and very strong in other areas. But yeah, to compare that to now, it's night and day.
What were the areas that you weren't strong at?
Most of my upper body stuff had gone because I wasn't able to lift the weight, to press the weight or whatever, and fitness was just shocking because I was carrying a weight that I shouldn't have been carrying, really. So we worked hard on it. I mean, we did a lot of extra fitness sessions, and I got to a point where I was pretty fit. But if I'm comparing that to now, it's just it wouldn't be on the same scale.
When did you realise you needed to change that?
Well, like I knew then. I knew then that I needed to get in better nick. I didn't know how much better nick I needed to get in, but a year after the World Cup, maybe, when I started to properly feel good and properly feel like I was getting back. And then when we went on the tour to New York and Japan, then I just got a bit of a light bulb moment of change a lot and stick to it.
And is that all coming from yourself, or somebody else helping you turn on that light bulb?
I don't know. Not sure. I can't remember. Like, the lads always tell me to get fitter, because front rower, you can never really be fit enough. So that's constantly in your head, and you're constantly hearing that. So you have to learn to like that. Then you have to learn to like going into the fitness sessions and circuits and metcons and all that, which I do. So on the back of that, then I just changed nutrition and how I eat and how I live a good bit more.
So how does the diet change then?
I started the intermittent fasting, so stop eating at 8, start eating at midday, and that's simple. It's just rules. You can eat in your window of 12 in the day till 8 at night, and don't eat the other time. So, and that, it doesn't work for some people, but that absolutely shedded pounds for me and kept me lean, and muscle mass eventually went up then, and fat disappeared. So
you must be looking forward to breakfast time every day.
There is no breakfast.
Oh, well, lunchtime.
Yeah, I don't really get massive hunger pains anymore.
Right.
And for the first couple of months, I was gasping for lunch and that, but now more so, I get to lunch and it's the point of I probably should eat now because I've got another session in the afternoon, and you can't go too long after a heavy session in the morning without fueling up. So it's easy to me now, I suppose.
Yeah, it's mad because most people would listen to that and think that's such it's an impossible task for some people on paper, but you're saying after you try it a little bit and give it a couple of weeks perhaps, it actually becomes second nature?
Yeah, it's just the way I live now, and I'm pretty happy with it. I never massively liked getting up and eating breakfast first thing, and we're usually in early enough, so it's not really that much of an issue because, by the time you get up, you'd want to be getting up the extra hour earlier to have an hour before you have your breakfast and then an hour before the gym or something. So it suits me perfect not to eat and crack on then at lunchtime.
So what are your meals like before you go to bed, and then what do you have when you get up?
Doesn't matter. I don't have to massively track it because I'm getting my calorie intake over a full day into an 8-hour window. So you go after it healthy, and I'm mad into cooking and meats and all that. So I spend a lot of time doing it. So it just depends on the day and what I want to eat.
You mentioned that at the top, that when you have this little bit of time off, you like to go into the shed, or you like to cook as well. Yeah. So is there a go-to dish that you say if before you fast tonight now, what will be the dish that you'll turn to? Not tonight now, I don't have time for it, but beef ribs will be my piece de resistance. Is there a secret ingredient? Is there a secret way of cooking them that gets the best out of them? I do a couple of different styles. Slow on the barbecue, heavily smoked. Then you do the oven style, then onto the barbecue, lashings of sauce and make them sweet. And you can tinker around with what way you want to have it. And will you be having that the week of a game, when you're carb load, or when you're trying to carb load as well? No. Stay away from that. When it's carb loading, is it just pasta, potatoes, whatever it may be, just to try and get back up to a rugby weight? Yeah. Pretty much the boring stuff. Pizzas. I'm open. You'd have pizza the week of a game? I'd have pizza the night before a game, yeah. So when the likes of Michael Phelps and all them talk about having 17 McDonald's or whatever it is before they go into a gold medal race, they're telling me the truth, really? Yeah, probably. Just get as much food into you before the day of the big game? Yeah, it's just fill the bus and you're going to have to empty it anyway, so... the other thing you spoke about there was whatever you might be doing now, which is going into your shed. What do you do in your shed? It's knife making, isn't it? It is, yeah. How did this interest start? Stemmed from cooking, and then I got picky about what I was using to cook and got the nice barbecue and started getting good knives, and then went down the little rabbit hole of that, and I came across Fingal Ferguson's knives. He's based in Cork? Yeah, in Skull in Cork. And I got on the list and got one of them anyway, and went down to collect it instead of getting it sent up because I wanted to have a feel of it and check that it was the one I wanted. And when I was down there, he was nice enough to show me around the workshop, and I saw the machines and saw kind of the setup, and I was like, well, I reckon I could do that. I'll give it a bash. And I slowly made my way up. I bought a little bench grinder in Aldi and a chunk of steel off Amazon and cracked on in the back garden, and over 2 years just got a little bit more machinery each time, and now I've fairly full setup. And was there any interest in metalwork or woodwork or anything like that before then? Not really, no. I was big into art and painting and stuff, and I kind of canned that over the last couple of years because I couldn't really get to the same level that I was at before.
So I was just looking for a creative outlet, and that was a nice option for me.
And is it purely a creative outlet? Do you look to sell the knives? Do you look to try and show them off to people?
Eventually I'd like to, yeah. That's the plan. It's more about time then and demand, and how much time you have to spend making them and getting all the kind of back end of that done. At the moment, a lot of them are going to friends and family or gifts or whatever.
Yeah, you can check them out on Proper Knife on Instagram. If you want, they look amazing. Like, is there a particular area that you, or I don't even know how to even ask the question. Like, is there a particular metal that you use the most? Is there a particular wood that you use the most? Because looking at Fingal's knives as well, he seems to have kind of a style down at the moment, doesn't he?
He's a particular style with loads of different metals and stuff. Yeah, he's very creative with what he does, though, and very good.
And you're still experimenting at the moment?
To get to that level now, it'll be something else. But he's guiding me along the way, kind of continuously. I haven't been onto him for a while now because I haven't really been in the shed that much with how much we're training. But I'm working on kind of the other side of it then, of being able to take a piece of wood from anywhere and change it into a handle and treat it properly so it'll last. And I'm using the razor steel. It's called AEBL. That's gone further down the rabbit hole. But it's a razor steel, and when it's treated well, it's sharp.
All right, okay. Are you going to miss this when you go over to Japan for a few weeks?
I'm missing it at the moment, yeah. I haven't really had the chance. I got in and tidied the shed, and that was about it for me. So all going well and go to Japan. I will miss it, but I have looked at knife makers over there that I would try and visit.
Right, okay.
Should I be lucky enough to travel.
Yeah, of course, you'd be lucky enough to travel at this point. Very best of luck with that over the next couple of weeks. Very best of luck with the endeavour as well with the knife making. It's very interesting. A Proper Knife, again, if you want to check that out. And just a reminder as well, you can bring the best of American barbecue to your backyard this summer with Bullseye's range of authentic American barbecue sauces and glazes. Cian Healy, thanks a million for popping in.
Thank you.
Yeah, Cian Healy was in the studio there with us yesterday on back on youtube.com/off the ball. Will Fleury, how are you?
Good.
Welcome back to studio. Have you ever done anything like that? Intermittent fasting, insane diets, anything like that?
I've played around with a bit of intermittent fasting, yeah, and I've done the ketogenic diet for a little while. Yeah, like, I don't know if they're the best for a high level athlete, but they don't, like, look, in terms of IGF-1 and all that, there seems to be a good bit of evidence behind the fact that they're good for longevity and stuff like that, but for athletes, I don't know.
What do you think about the ketogenic diet, like?
So, like, you feel pretty good on it. Your brain, like, as in once you've gotten into it, there's that little window where you feel like crap for a few days when your body's switching over from, like, sugar-based energy source into, ketones. But once you're in it, you feel great. It's just that explosive energy. So, like, what I noticed was, say, if I was pinned to the ground grappling or anything like that, it was very hard to, like, make that explosion to get out of that situation. And then even if you did, you'd feel like there wasn't another one left in you. You'd be a bit exhausted and your heart rate would be way higher than it normally would be.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like, hit a bag for 60 minutes, it's just like you have energy for all day. So it's great for that kind of, like, slower, longer stuff. But the short, bursty, kind of explode stuff, I don't know, you don't have the energy in the muscle.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, Cian Healy's obviously gone to a different level since he started his intermittent fasting. His body shape has changed. He still seems to have a good bit of that explosivity, but he's become more of a mobile athlete, and he's a better athlete.
He's intermittent fasting with carbs.
Yeah, massively.
Massively. I can only imagine.
Let's talk a little bit about workouts there, because there was another thing he mentioned there, which was kind of watching guys on Instagram and saying, oh, that guy's doing an insane, or as he described it, a sick workout. I want to copy that. I want to put myself into that dark place. Like, what's the most incredible thing or ridiculous thing you've done in training?
I do a lot of really intense conditioning stuff. Like, I used to use the Aerodyne a hell of a lot, which is the assault bike. And just do, like, bursts on that where I try and get my wattage through the roof for 20 seconds and then recover within a minute. And, like, during that minute, you'd be on the floor, you know, doing your best to survive. But at the end of it, like, I stopped doing that because I didn't feel like it actually gave me the best result while I was sparring. So, like, my body used to ramping up like that. And that's great for lactic conditioning, and it does get a little bit more muscle energy there. But, like, why are you doing this? What benefit does it have is what I ask myself these days. So, like, I'm not mad to just go and put myself into pain because I
can do that. I know I can do that. Like, I know I'm kind of resilient in that sense. But why am I doing that? What result am I getting from doing this? And actually, now that I've taken a little bit of a step back and I kind of do a little bit more like light aerobic sort of work along with all the really insane stuff, I probably get a better result than even like, you know, nowadays I do a good bit more rowing and stuff like that. And like, I've set some ridiculous times on a rower just by kind of not killing myself every day, by having your days where you go like, okay, this is going to be tough, but it's 80% of what I can endure. And then you have your day where you go all out, balls to the wall. And, you know, it's those days have to be broken up. It can't be constant. And I think I was one of the, like, I'm kind of on that end of the spectrum where I'm just mad anyway, like, and I want to go in and, you know, go balls to the wall every day. So kind of changing that out and taking a little bit of a step back and not being insane all the time was kind of a big step forward for me.
Would you have been the same, Andy?
I would have done those hard sessions, yeah. And the biggest benefit of them is the mental strength it gives you by going through those barriers. You know, knowing that you've paid the price, that you've basically killed yourself in training, just kind of, it strengthens your resolve, and you know that once you step in that ring, you've done it. You've paid the price, and this guy hasn't. You know what I mean? And then that's it. Like, I know there's no effing way he's going to beat me after what I've just put myself through. Yeah. That's one of the biggest benefits of doing that to yourself, isn't it? In the gym.
So much of like fight fitness is mental, and it's how much you think I've done a hell of a lot more than you. You know, I know you haven't put yourself through what I've put myself through, and when you can look across a guy and feel that and believe it yourself, that's the main thing. It doesn't really actually matter what you're doing as much as you believe what you've done is incredible and that he couldn't have done it. Like,
that's very interesting. We've had you in a couple of times, Bill. We've kind of charted the highs and the one low only so far, really, in your professional career. You've gone to 6-1 as a pro in the MMA game now, fighting at Bellator at the moment, over in Oklahoma City the week before last.
Tackerville.
In Oklahoma. Yes. Big difference, I'd imagine.
Yeah, tell me.
Tell us about that. What was it like? It was Antonio Jones that you took out. Unanimous decision?
Yeah. Pretty dominant, unanimous decision. Probably could have got the finish in the first round. A couple of little adjustments. I had his back for quite a while. I was quite close to choking him out. I even had his arm. Like, best position you can be in is on the back with the arm trapped, because they only have one arm to defend themselves. I got that for about 30 seconds. You know, people were saying, oh, he's a big thick neck and, you know, he's big traps and stuff. I could have finished that if I just adjusted on my, like, I wanted to be square with his back and I didn't quite get there. And that's my problem. I just have to fix a few little technical things. So disappointed in a way to not get the finish, but look, happy enough with a very dominant victory. Like,
it's interesting. One of the things you always say, Andy, is that over in the States they love to see the finish. I presume that's the same in the mixed martial arts game.
Yeah, and it's the same everywhere. Look, people love a finish here too, you know, and it's a clip, it's a highlight, you know, whereas 15 minutes of domination, okay, there'll be a couple of little things you can extract out of that, but like, everybody loves the viral clip, especially these days, like, so to not get that's disappointing.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find yourself gaining incrementally as a skilled mixed martial artist at this point? Do you still think that you kind of got all the skills down? Or it's kind of hard to know how you actually gain improvements here, because I'd imagine the margins are quite small.
They're small, but like, you have to keep struggling to improve. And even MMA is such a wide variety of skills, you don't ever feel like you're going to be amazing at everything. So you have to continue to go like, okay, where's that weakness? What can I do here? And even like, you know, I've gone back and watched the fight probably 15 times so far, and I see loads of little details, and I'm like, oh, come on, you know better than that. Like, and it's the things you already know that you have to kind of make, look, this just happens. When your brain tries to do this, you just do it perfectly. So it's even just drilling again, the same stuff. And there's a ton more. Like, look, there are guys who are incredible leg lock specialists, and I'd probably know 30-40% of that game, and I'm not a master in it at all, and there are things you can constantly improve on. Like, so with MMA, there's never enough time to get to where you want to be, really.
On that video analysis, is it something that's kind of you're driving yourself? Is it an SBG directive? Do you have a lot of coaches kind of coming around pointing things out?
Like, nobody's going to do anything for you,
sure.
You know. So there are people out there who, like, if I come to John with a detail and say like, oh, what do you think I should do in this situation? He'll give me a hand. But like, if I'm not the one who wants to learn it and do it, it's not going to happen. Like.
And what sort of things are you going to John saying, I want a hand with this?
Just different things, like even the finish on the back. Like, I was straight away after the fight, I was like, what happened there?
Okay.
And he's telling me, look, you're not on the centre of his back. You know, you need your nipples on his shoulder blades. You need to be right in behind. You need to be able to use your powerful pulling muscles there. kind of get the lads involved a little bit more. Little details like that, and like, you know, I've come to him with a load of other stuff since, just being like, where do I need to be here? Why didn't this pass work? You know, and then like intuitively, just from doing it for so many years, I kind of have a little bit of a sense of it, and I'll have my own opinion. And like sometimes you get into a bit of a debate about like what the best course of action would have been in that situation. But yeah, like you could go to as many people as you want in there, because there's a whole there's a group of people with a massive skill set, and you can get a ton of different opinions, and it can nearly be too many opinions at times. Like,
it's interesting because like we've spoken about this as well, Andy, isn't it? The kind of idea of a gym and the culture of a gym, and how everybody's out there for themselves at the same time, but ultimately the only way each individual can really get the best out of themselves in that gym environment is if there is a collective way of thinking as well, if that selfishness is kind of taken back a little bit and there is a bit of a group mentality, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a tricky balance, like, because you have to be concerned primarily with your own career, but at the same time, if your training partners aren't invested slightly in your career, you know, it's to the detriment of your career. So like, I need to make people buy into what I'm doing to a certain extent. So if it comes sparring day and I'm whooping your ass bad every day, you know, you're not too invested in Will. You don't want me to do well necessarily. So like, there's a kind of an odd human balance there, and it is interesting. And like, that's why I think, you know, if people saw like the camaraderie and the way we, you know, have to kind of get on really well with each other, and like by doing stuff like this, you form a bond with people as well. And like, the more hard rounds you've done with somebody, the more you know that guy, the more you just inherently know their character. So like, it's very interesting, and it's very hard to kind of express the balance of it, if you know, like it's where it should be, and why you just inherently lie in a different place with certain characters. Like, there are guys you'll get on incredibly well with, and you'll just have that like straight away, we click, we can beat the crap out of each other for 5 rounds, be grand afterwards, we shake hands, and it's no problem. Then you might have a guy who, like, you might not even be in tough sparring session with them, but there's just an animosity and there's an energy. So yeah, it's interesting.
Taking it personally that you're beating the shit out of them, or?
Yeah, and like, just different egos, just sometimes you don't click with somebody, and you know, there's just a natural animosity between the two of you, and you know.
That's it. Have you had that?
Yeah, the respect is when you're sparring with somebody. That's when it's hard not to respect somebody when you've given it everything and they've given it everything, isn't it? It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, big time.
And even if you don't like them, you'll still respect them. It's the ones who don't do that, isn't it? It's the ones
who kind of snake out a little bit, like, you know,
no, I can't today, or
yeah, my foot's a bit wrecked. Yeah.
So there is, and it's like you spoke earlier about changing your training, like not going to that place and not pushing yourself. Who's like, is in terms of your training in the gym and SPG, are you kind of leading your training in terms of your conditioning and your fitness? Are you pushing that?
So I train separately in a place out in Terranure with this guy Adrian Quinn, and he's in charge of my conditioning and, you know, just kind of strength development and energy system development. I could do it in SPG if I wanted to, but I spend enough time in there, and I kind of like even just mentally to get away.
In there is technical, sparring.
Yeah, and that, like, even when I used to do the 2 in there, you kind of feel like I'm here all day, like, you know, and it doesn't give you that little bit of mental work.
You know, they're teammates, but there might be competitors as well, is like not wanting anyone to see what you're doing.
A little bit of that, yeah. There is, like, I suppose, look, like, if somebody asks me, I'll tell them. You know, I'll be like, here's what I do, here's how I map this out, here's the energy system I'm trying to develop. But, you know, I like having that, like, air of kind of mystique about it, where it kind of intimidates people a little bit. And I think, to a degree, even with training partners, that's why it's kind of interesting. Like, you know, I intimidate my training partners. You know, like, they don't like to see me coming, and that's a good thing, I think. But at the same time, I'm not going to be a dickhead to them. Like, I'm not going to go out and really, you know, try and affect them personally. But, like, if they, like, I want them to know if a Will shows up, you're going to get some hard rounds today, like.
For sure. What happens next for you? Like, are you going to fight in this Bellator card in September? Are you looking for just volume at this point still?
Yeah, September, I 100% want to be on that card. I've been told that I have a massive opportunity to be on that card. And the fight I want right now is this guy, Fabian Edwards. He's an undefeated amateur and an undefeated pro. He's got a lot of hype behind him. And I want to derail that hype train.
Is he any good?
So, yeah, look, he's a long south, like, he's kind of a athletic southpaw. And a lot of people have found him quite tricky to deal with. He came over and he started training with us for a little while, and I've trained with him once or twice. And
how did that go?
Yeah, there's a reason I want this fight so much, you know. yeah, look, like, I feel like I can kind of deal with this guy very, very easily, and it's just given me the opportunity to do that. Bellator don't seem too keen to give me the opportunity.
Why not?
It'd derail their hype train. They have a guy in England who's undefeated as a pro and an amateur. They've just lost another undefeated guy in England. They want to build him up a little bit.
Right, so Bellator are almost afraid of giving you this fight.
Yeah, it looks like that, yeah.
That's interesting. So what's been happening in these sparring sessions then that you'd be so confident of this?
You never
sparred, okay?
No, we never fully sparred. We did
okay.
we did a positional session, and in fairness, like, his grappling isn't considered his strongest point, but it was a very easy deal with him grappling wise.
How big would that fight and that win be for your career?
Huge. Yeah, and look, here's the thing, I'm going out and beating legit guys, but they're legit guys without much hype behind them. He's a guy who's decent, but he's a ton of hype. You beat him, things change for you. So I want that opportunity.
Presumably on a financial level, on a livelihood level.
Yeah, and even on a recognition level. Like, I'm by far the best middleweight in Ireland, but like, it just doesn't seem to have taken off. Even like Bellator had a press conference yesterday. Like, if anyone's going to make it on a world stage, it's me. Like, I've beaten tons of legit guys. All the fights I've been involved in have been legitimate contests, and yet, like, there's not even a hint of me being kind of paraded down at that press conference. I've just won in the States. Like,
why is this? In boxing, it can be similar, where there are guys who are not that good. Why is this English guy getting so much hype as compared to you, you're more likely?
In fairness, he has a good few viral kind of clips where he's like knock guys out. He looks athletic.
Does he sell tickets?
I don't know if it's actually that as much, because here that's a huge thing. But over there, I think it is just a few viral clips, and like, his brother's in the UFC. His brother's just put himself into title contention on Saturday, and his brother's a very good fighter, to be fair. So I think it's that storyline and that whole thing, and it's kind of just building up, like.
Yeah. It's always funny how certain guys get that, isn't it?
Yeah, and then, like, look, time sorts all that out eventually. It's just getting the opportunity to do it, like.
Yeah, and making it work for you, not so that when you do. See, the thing is with them that they'll try and drag it out and make it wait and put you in hard fight. Then you do get to fight him, you're not the fighter that you once were.
I'm 30 now.
You've paid.
I'm like, I'm not old, but I'm not going to be here forever. Yeah. So like, that's why I'm so eager to get this chance. Yeah. And even like, look, beating him isn't going to be the pinnacle of my career. I want to go on and do a hell of a lot more after that. But beating him is the step to where I want. Like, that puts you in contention to get all the things you wanted to get when you set out to do this. Like, so I want to get it soon.
What's his name?
Fabian Edwards.
We want you, Fabian.
Boom. Good man, Andy.
One last thing. You used to be his manager. One last thing we wanted to chat about this morning, because we were talking about it earlier with regards to the Dadashev story, the boxer who passed away in the ring on Friday night, passed away yesterday after injury sustained in the ring on Friday night, I should say. And Andy kind of brought up the point about the culture difference that is perceived to exist between boxing and mixed martial arts. Is it true that people in MMA are not as disrespected if they pull themselves out of fights?
I think because of the whole submission element of the game, yeah, there has to be a level of acceptance that, look, sometimes the fight's over, you've been caught in something, it's, you're going to pass out, tap out, or your joint's going to be destroyed, live to fight another day. So probably from that point of view, there's a greater level of acceptance that, look, this is something that has to happen at times. The Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she tapped the strikes in a title fight, and she was somebody who put herself out there as like, I'll go till the end, I'll go to whatever, and she got really heavily criticised for that. But I think anybody who trains to this level and anybody who you don't get here without wanting it very, very badly, they don't quit for no reason. So even in that situation, who knows what's going on with her body at that point in time? Maybe she can't see, maybe her balance is all over the place. You don't know where she's been. Like, sometimes a shot can look a little bit innocuous and it can be a massive shot. Like, there is a better level, like, there is a greater acceptance, and I think kind of a more open-minded culture in MMA in general. But you do have a lot of fanboys now.
And people aren't as afraid of a loss in the MMA. I think, like, I don't think
it's becoming a bit different now. It's becoming a bit more like boxing now. So, like, say even, my loss in Rome there, that's against a legit fighter. It's like, all of my contests have been against legit fighters. But even a 6-1 record these days isn't what a 6-1 record was 10 years ago, where like people go, oh well, you've won 7 legit, or 6 out of 7 legit contests. You have a lot of guys now who are fighting kind of really can fight.
Records.
Yeah, and the records don't mean as much anymore. And then because of that, there's like, oh, well, he lost to a guy already. He must be crap, like, you know. So there is that element of boxing in it. But there are still some old school fans who would have that kind of level of like, oh.
Yeah, well, I think that's where it's always been driven from in terms of boxing, because a loss sets you back so much in your career progression, but also within like how you look to people. When you just see, you know, 17-2, it's not as impressive as 19-0. You know, it's not as attractive on a card or on a poster so.
MMA is becoming more and more like that,
that's
unfortunately.
A shame.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
But that comes with a severe area of risk as well, does it not? Because the reason why we're talking about this is because of what happened this week. It's because of what happened to Dadashev and his death yesterday. So ultimately, if you have a culture that Andy talks about where a boxer pulls out of a fight, going to lose the fight anyway, and is ostracized. I'm not sure. Am I putting that too strongly?
No.
He ostracized from the boxing community for pulling himself out of a fight because of serious risk to his own health, or he felt to be a serious risk to his own health. That's not a healthy thing to be bringing into mixed martial arts.
Definitely not, no. There's two things, though, that are slightly different, I suppose, about MMA as well. If you're dropped and you're badly hurt, you will be finished. The fight won't stop and you won't get a chance to recover. And a lot of people wouldn't see that as a good thing. I do, though. I think if you've been hurt to the point where you need 10, 15 seconds to get up, get your bearings about you, and then continue to fight, and you're going to sustain a hell of a lot more damage throughout, like, you know, you might get up and take another 100 blows to the head. That's not a good thing, you know. Getting that guy finished on the ground, and maybe he takes one or two more shots, but he's in a better position having been dropped and once or twice hit than he would be had he been dropped, given a while, get back up and take untold damage. Like, there's also, like, I suppose Ireland, since the death of Al Carvalho, we've started doing like contrast MRIs on, like, you have to have one before you can compete, and it's basically mapping out all the blood vessels in your brain, and if there are any exposed blood vessels or anything that looks like it could be a risk factor, you're not cleared to fight.
So just explain that. What is the worst case scenario of an exposed blood vessel?
A hemorrhage, or, you know, brain bleed.
So this data can tell you if you're at risk of bleeding the brain.
I'm not sure what exactly happened on Friday evening, but I imagine it was a burst blood vessel in his brain.
It was cerebral hematoma, bleeding on the brain.
So, like, somewhere, and I'm not saying it was like a weak blood vessel or whatever, but somewhere there was something that was slightly more exposed than it should have been.
Right.
And then the impact of that against the skull created swelling in the brain.
Before fighting the MMA, would you have your MRI? How soon?
It has to be within 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got
same in boxing. 4 months sometimes. You know, depending on the state, you might have to get a new one for each fight.
So he would have been.
But the thing is, you're sparring in between isn't it? That's when the damage can be done. And a lot of time, damage is more done in sparring, and then you're taking it into a fight.
Yeah, and again, like, I'm delighted to hear that they do that in boxing as well, because it's so much more applicable to boxing as well. You know, like, you get your heads rattled a lot more. Like, generally speaking, you know, there's more.
But it is the succession of punches, and it's always like the second knockdown that will do the damage. You know, the first in fights, the first you get knocked. Like, I back up your point where in MMA, if the fight's over, it's over. You know, someone will get knocked down, they'll get up, and if it's stopped, then they're usually fine. But it's just sustained punches and continually being hurt that does the damage, it seems.
Yeah. Like, I've watched a couple of MMA fights where the guys have passed afterwards, and in fairness, like, the overall death toll isn't that high, but it's still pretty fucking shocking that anybody dies doing this. But, like, it always seems to be brutal fights that do, you know, it's never just like a one shot, you know, he got done. Like, even like, I don't know if you saw the Ben Askren knockout, like, he got flying knee KO'd by George Masvidal, and he was stiff for, you know.
Was that the one was in like the first couple of seconds?
Ran across and just, but, like, it looked horrific, as in his body was stiff, he was not responding for, you know, 40, 50 seconds. But he gets up, he's fine, he does an interview 2 days later, is very coherent, very cerebral. Like, you see things like, and then you wonder, like, right, if had that fight not been, like, okay, had that been a whack to the head and he was able to stay conscious and he kept going and he kept getting more damage, it could be a totally different situation. So in a way, maybe he's lucky he got finished that early, like.
It's true, isn't it? It's like when the thing goes on for a little bit longer and they're still standing. It's almost, it's the old adage. Granted, it wasn't as severe damage, but the old thing they used to say about Muhammad Ali, his worst attribute was his strong chin. He managed to take so many blows to the head, and over time that obviously was the thing that finished him. It's not a nice topic of conversation, but it's an important one to have anyway. Will, we wish you the very best. Oh, sorry, one more thing.
A question before you go. I read your Twitter bio. Tell me about these 16 guys.
What's this Twitter bio say?
He's a legend. He beat 16 guys outside the Hillbillies all night. So
let's hear about this.
It's kind of bullshit, really. Fuck. I really need to change that bio. I was on a mate's back one night and we bumped into a bunch of guys and they like shoved us over and started kicking us on the ground and stuff, and then we kind of separated out and my mate went back into them to give them a good telling off, to tell them they were a bunch of assholes, and they kind of surrounded him. So I was a big lad, I was playing rugby at the time, and I just drove into a lot of them, and a lot of people fell over basically, and then I ran one lad into the fountain and gave him a few slaps, and that was it.
And at what point did you count that there were 16 of them?
No, I didn't. I got phone calls the next day telling me I beat the crap out of 16 guys outside Hillbillies, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I just ran with it then.
Great stuff, Will. We'll see you on that card in September for sure. After this call out this morning, you're going to get that fight, and
I doubt it. I doubt that'll happen. But
you'll see you in some shape or form.
Yeah, I'll be fighting somebody that day.
Dublin, Bellator. What date in September?
Will happen eventually as well.
That's an important one to get down. What date in September?
27th
of September. Very best of luck with that. I'm sure we'll be catching up again soon.
Cool.
Will Fleury there in studio. It is now 11 minutes past 9 and you're watching OTBAM. And we had Nick Royal, cricket correspondent, in yesterday morning looking ahead to Ireland against England at Lord's. But as part of their History of Sports series, the lads released this episode of Paul Rouse last night on the history of cricket in Ireland. Take a look.
It is amazing that Trinity still has this cricket pitch on this very valuable real estate.
It is a wonderful thing that is the pitch that W.G. Grace, the great sporting celebrity, the most brilliant cricketer of the 19th century, but the biggest sporting celebrity in England in the late 19th century was W.G. Grace, and he played regularly on that pitch.
Is that right? And so if he was the biggest sporting celebrity at that time, so bigger than football, bigger than rugby?
Oh, he was the iconic sporting figure, an amateur as well. He was a doctor, he qualified as a doctor, but he never worked as a doctor. And he was an amateur who got paid.
So clearly it's a sport of the elite, but in Ireland, it's not overstating things to say this really is a game of the people as well. That is what people may be under the misapprehension. This was the gentry and the elite, but actually this was everybody for the time in Ireland.
So it was the gentry and it was the garrison. It was a garrison game. There was a cricket pitch laid out at every significant British barracks in the country. All the public schools of Ireland had cricket pitches. Yeah. The elite on their landed estates had cricket pitches. Across the country, this is it. The most prestigious one was at the Vice Regal Lodge, currently Áras an Uachtaráin, which had the most beautiful cricket pitch in the country. It had its own club in which the Viceroy and his elite staff played, but they also, the butcher, the baker and the servants also played on that same team, so they were hired by virtue of the power. So it is a game of the elite, but it's not just a game of the elite.
Fascinating stuff from Paul Rouse in the history of cricket. Ireland beginning their test against England in Lord's this morning at around 11 a.m. John Duggan, I think?
Yes, 11 a.m.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, and Andy. Good morning. Yeah, it's historic. It's going to be a great day. Going to be good weather at Lord's. 4-day test. And I was speaking to Niall O'Brien on News Talk Breakfast, and he doesn't think an Owen Morgan situation is going to happen again, actually.
Right.
With Ireland having a test status now, this is the third test they've had. And that was an interesting comment I felt from Niall, who was wicketkeeper for Ireland for so long, played against England in 2011 when they beat them at the Cricket World Cup. His brother Kevin, of course, is part of the setup today. So Lord's, the home of cricket. I've never actually been to Lord's, but I've watched so many matches there. And of course, England are preparing for the Ashes now. They've just won the Cricket World Cup. Owen Morgan's not involved because he doesn't play Test cricket anymore. But I was at the Pakistan game last year. It was great fun. And for anybody who's gone over to London, it'll be a good few days.
For sure. What are we kicking off with this morning?
Well, Shane Lowry really receiving a hero's welcome as he returned to Clara in Offaly yesterday evening with the Clara Jug as Open champion. He was greeted by thousands of fans following his victory at Royal Portrush over the weekend. And he's keen to represent Ireland at the Tokyo Olympics in 2020, also hoping to make the European Ryder Cup team next year. The Republic of Ireland under-19s, they play Portugal in the semi-finals of the European Championship in Armenia today. Portugal, the current holders, and kick-off in Yerevan is at 3 o'clock Irish time. Dundalk welcoming Karabag of Azerbaijan to Oriel Park for a Champions League second qualifying round. First leg tied tonight, kick-off at 7:45. The visitors reached the group stage of the competition 2 years ago. At the same stage of the Champions League this evening, Celtic playing the Estonians at Namakalju at Parkhead. That match also beginning at 7:45. We've talked about the cricket. Boyd Rankin, an interesting story, played a test for England in 2014 after representing Ireland and is now back wearing green. Tipperary, the Munster under-20 hurling champions, the Premier County edging Cork by 315 to 217 at Semple Stadium last night. Jake Morris scoring a dramatic goal deep into stoppage time. Not the first time Tip have lowered Cork's colours with a late goal in an under-20 match or an under-21 match. And a 7-race card at Nace today, the first off Owen there, 10-6.
Good stuff, John. You're sticking with us. Andy, you're sticking with us because it's time for this.
There's an agenda against Paul. He's a great professional. He's got a heart of gold.
You know, we tried to hook a big one, but he got away.
For me to be sat here now is a dream come true for me.
Time for Deal or No Deal on this Wednesday morning on OTBAM, and we're kicking off this morning with Paris Saint-Germain. They've moved ahead of Juventus in the race for Tottenham defender Danny Rose and are confident of completing a £20 million deal for the 29-year-old England international. John, you are a massive Tottenham fan. He's obviously an asset you could do without, or is he? Or is there a fear of seeing him starting for someone else in the business end of the Champions League next season? Danny Rose, keep him or don't keep him?
Keep him. I saw him play in the business end of the Champions League. He was very good. Played really well in Amsterdam. Can be a temperamental kind of character, but a very, very good footballer. I think he's very good at going forward as well. But I think the reason why we're hearing this story is that Ryan Sessegnon, I think, is a target of Tottenham, and I think Ryan Sessegnon will leave Fulham and join Spurs, and I think that's why we're seeing the Danny Rose stories.
If the Ryan Sessegnon move is an absolute guarantee, do you take 20 million from Paris Saint-Germain now and say, be off on your way, Danny?
Yes, I think you do. Like, if he wants to go down that road, he's going to go down that road. So, I didn't fancy Trippier, and Trippier's gone to Atletico. I'm happy with that. Rose less happy if he leaves. Also, there's always the prospect of what's the situation with cover in these positions. So fullbacks has been a perennial issue for Tottenham going back 30, 40 years. We've never had the best fullbacks, and Danny Rose has been an excellent fullback in England international. So I'd be a bit more worried about him leaving than I am about Trippier leaving.
Another defender here, Daniel Levy, is ready to push Toby Alderweireld's price up to £40 million if the 30-year-old Belgian's £25 million release clause is allowed to expire on Friday. Is it too late for someone to back him before the price jumps? And how important is he now for this Tottenham squad?
He's important, but I do think he might want to leave from a financial perspective. I do think he might want a better deal with better wages elsewhere. Toby Alderweireld, Vertonghen, I think, is seen as more of an asset for the club than Alderweireld, and Davinson Sanchez, of course, is a younger player who's got a lot of pace, who's growing in the game. So once again, if Alderweireld leaves, you've got to have somebody in there. You've got to have a target to replace him. So. It's like the Ericsson situation. I wouldn't want to see players just walking out of the club if we don't have adequate replacements.
We're going to get your take on Gareth Bale in just a moment, but what's your thoughts on what's been happening with Gareth Bale, Andy, over the last couple of months? I mean, a player who perhaps would rather play golf and stay on 600k a week rather than perhaps take a little bit of a wage cut and get guaranteed first team football somewhere.
I don't know. It probably comes down to that. Well, how much desire does he have left? And where do you go after Real Madrid? You know, it's always going to be a step down, isn't it? Where do you go? It's like the league going to Juventus in terms that he might do well at Juventus, but he can always go to Barcelona or Real, and there's always that kind of there's always that next step, isn't it? You know, as a young player, Bale he's probably coming to the end as a pacey player. You know, he's probably past his best.
Do you think it's possible for someone like Gareth Bale to lose his desire to play top level sport?
I don't know. That's what makes champions great, isn't it? Like when you see people who can so successful at the highest level, to keep doing it, that's what separates them from just it's like Ronaldo or Messi. They keep, even though they're at the top, they're on the highest money, they keep wanting to win. Maybe that's what separates him from those. Like in terms of his talent, he could match those guys in certain aspects with his play, but does he have the desire? John, you know him, obviously, former Tottenham player. Like he's been linked with United. Do I want him to come to United? Probably not now. Probably not.
It would be such a Man United signing.
It would, yeah.
Let's throw the money at it. Get Gareth Bale in. He's 30 years of age. Get a couple of good seasons out of it and put the sticking plaster on the big problems that Manchester United have as a club by throwing money at things.
Would he come back to Spurs?
I don't think so, because of the wage structure. Like, he's on 3 times more than what Harry Kane is on. Also doesn't equate on 2 reasons. The high pressing game that Pochettino and the energy that Pochettino espouses. Also, you know, we're talking about being about growing young players, and Troy Parrott starting in the first team, 17 years of age against Juventus, amazing story, really. Like we don't have players playing in the Premier League. He's like, I don't know if he could go out on loan, but a 17-year-old playing for Tottenham Hotspur who reached a Champions League final. This is great stuff to see. But Bale would, from a romantic point of view, be great to see him back at Spurs and score those individual wonder goals. But I just think too many injuries, and I think the Real Madrid project there's a toxicity about Real Madrid as a club that I don't like. The Galacticos, the throwing money at things, signing big names, and then trying to fit them all into a jigsaw. And the club I don't like. And Zidane, I don't know why he went back. What Zidane did was incredible, to win 3 Champions Leagues in a row. But I also think that football has moved away a little bit from big names and big players, and moved more towards collectives and teams and systems, as we saw with Liverpool and Tottenham in the Champions League final. Liverpool, it's not all about an individual being the difference or not being the difference. It's about systems now.
It helps that they've got good individuals, though.
Yeah, it does. But if Bale's going to be in the Premier League, do they not have to build a team around him and that kind of thing? Unfortunately for him, it's not working out at Real Madrid now. And as Andy says, where do you go? It's a difficult place for him. Like, do you go to China or something like that? And how much is money versus trophies a motivating factor now?
It's true. Let's talk Manchester United. Ed Woodward is skipping their tour for the first time in the summer since he took up his role in 2013. They are still short of the £75 million Leicester want for Harry Maguire. They are also in the hunt for Sean Longstaff and Bruno Fernandes. Andy, as a Manchester United fan, are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic heading into the new season? Will Solskjaer still be in charge come Christmas?
I've kind of turned off to the whole thing, you know. I think a lot of United fans would be the same.
That's not a good sign, though.
I'm in a Men United WhatsApp group. It's must be 20 lads, mates of mine, who are all Manchester United fans, and it's been dead. You know, there's like tumbleweeds going through it. And usually every year, this time of year, there'd be a buzz going on. Like, even the players that's trying to sign, like Maguire, it doesn't fill you with inspiration, does it? You know, it's not. I don't know. Does he make a huge difference, Maguire? You know, compared to Chris Smalling. Like, is he as good as football as Chris Smalling? Probably a better defender, but not as good as footballer as Chris Smalling, is he? You know, in terms of playing? I don't know. I don't know. I think they need a clear out. I think they could do it offloading Lukaku. That's been muted. Sanchez, I think he had a good Copa America, but will he get a pre-season now after being playing?
If Lukaku goes, suddenly you're looking at Alexis Sanchez as your starting number 9 at times. If you push Marcus Rashford out,
I think they'll push Rashford up front now. I think he's time to do that, isn't it? I don't know. He's
not a good vibe about United, though. Not a good vibe. Not a good feeling about the club.
And Pogba, is he going to go? You know, he's actually played well, and then they'll get a bad result, and then he'll throw the toys out of the pram.
Well, here's an interesting one for you. So, Andy Mitten from United We Stand, he's in the know when it comes to Manchester United. He's on the United Summer Tour. He was on Off the Ball last night talking to Joe, and he was making the point that even Solskjaer himself doesn't know if Pogba's leaving.
Solskjaer doesn't know. He doesn't know. He wants him to stay. Pogba's training well, but Pogba's wanted to leave Manchester United. The problem there is United don't want to sell him. They don't need the money. They certainly won't be buckling to any lower bids from Real Madrid. It does look more that he's going to be staying, but I don't know, and Solskjaer doesn't know.
And is there a worry, Andy, based on what you know of Pogba as a person? And I know this is where it's difficult to, put you on the spot. But is there a worry that if you keep him and he doesn't want to stay, is he the type who might pull a sulk for a significant chunk of the season, or will he get on with it? Do they hope and feel if he is made stay?
I think the latter. To be fair to him, he's been professional at Manchester United, and I think if there's a good comparison, maybe it's Wayne Rooney in 2013 when he wanted to leave. You could not find a Manchester United fan who supported him at the start of August 13. By the end of it, half the away end at Swansea were cheering his name. Wayne was the best player for 2/3 of that season, and I think Pogba, for all his positive and negative attributes, I think he's always been a very good trainer. And on this pre-season tour, there was speculation that he wouldn't be on it. Well, in the first game, he was the best player on the pitch by a mile in Perth.
Well, there you go. Does that give you encouragement as a Manchester United fan that actually keeping Paul Pogba may not be the worst decision in the world?
When he plays, he's like, when he's on these games, he's unplayable, isn't he? He's like, he does what he does. Like, he's hard. You can't move him off the ball. He'll find a pass, and he might pop up with a goal. But it's just playing him in the right position and playing a system, as John said, it's all about systems that suits him, because he's not a defensive midfielder out and out, like sit back. He's kind of a striding, it's like similar to Gerrard, where he'll without that real explosiveness that Gerrard had at times. I don't know. Wan-Bissaka seems to be doing well. In pre-season, there's been a few clips circulating that he's playing well. He's a good young player, so that's encouraging. But just being United, being a big club, they will want one big marquee signing, won't they? They will want something, to add to. Well, it's already a top-heavy squad with Lukaku, Lingard, Rashford, Sanchez.
Maguire's going to be that marquee signing if it does happen. Speaking of marquee signings and inflating transfer fees, Arsenal have reportedly offered Crystal Palace £60 million plus Reiss Nelson on loan for a season for Wilfried Zaha. That's been rejected according to the Independent because Palace want £80 million in cash. Arsenal also tabled a third bid for Celtic's Kieran Tierney, which has been rejected. It says on my script here, are Arsenal secretly the worst set top six club going into the new season? That is ridiculous. There's no secret about it. Of course they're the worst set top six club. Are they still a top six club, John Duggan?
They're a sixth club. I don't know what's going on in Arsenal. They need a central defender, surely. It's the first thing they should be getting.
They're going to sign one and they're going to put him back on loan straight away.
Club doesn't seem to be very well run. Fans are unhappy. And you think when Wenger leaves, okay, maybe we have a chance of a fresh start here, but no, it's not happening. Man United, we're going to have months now of hugely positive Ole Gunnar Solskjaer press conferences every single week. The spirit's great, the enthusiasm's great, we're doing really well, and I don't know if the results will be able to mirror that. But I'm waiting for the hugely positive Ole Gunnar Solskjaer press conferences. My concern with Man United is, does he have the ability to manage Pogba, and does he have the ability to tactically manage Manchester United to do a lot better than they have been doing? And I would question that given his record in management. It's all about nostalgia, it's all about the class of '92, it's all about the attack. It's all about the great times they all had. I don't see him in the same bracket as Guardiola and Klopp as an elite football manager.
Speaking of tricky personalities, and we'll have to finish this very quickly, you've got an interesting view of Neymar, or well, certainly seen him up close, and he's in the window again this summer, John.
Yeah, well, Neymar is industrial. It's all industrial with Neymar, isn't it? It's a whole brand. It's the whole can you accommodate the brand just as much as the footballer? Like, he is a class footballer. I've seen him up close, as I said. And I think with a lot of these individuals, they're getting to these clubs. There's only probably a certain coterie of clubs now that can afford them, can afford the wage bill, can afford the brand, are able to fit them into the team, and for it to work. And that's the problem when you're in somewhere like PSG. I think the person who probably has more things to think about is Kylian Mbappe, because he doesn't want to waste that God-given talent that he has.
Arsenal should sign Neymar. Get him into the club right now. Arsenal should just compile the greatest...
Just break the bank.
They should create the greatest collection of idiots that is available to them, because it is one of the... They've gone about their business at times this year in an embarrassing manner. I am an Arsenal fan. Offering Reiss Nelson on loan plus 60 million quid to sort of evaluate 80 million quid is actually an embarrassing piece of business. I admire how ballsy they are in this, but sometimes being so ballsy actually just results in complete and utter stupidity. That's all I have to say about Arsenal this morning.
Neymar to Arsenal. That's the off the ball. That's the line of off the ball this morning. That's the line.
May as well just make this club a bunch of moaners because they're already well en route to that. Andy, John, thanks a million for joining us this morning. Dealer No Deal and OTBAM back tomorrow morning. Stay tuned though on offtheball.com and on OTB Sports Radio now, because straight after this we're going to hear from Annalise Murphy. Aoife Hopkins and Aisling Kelleher are both on the cusp of Olympic qualification this morning in the sailing, so that's a timely interview. Also on OTB Sports Radio during the day, a Golf Weekly special with Brian O'Driscoll at midday. Mick Conlon speaking to Off the Ball the day after his robbery in Rio from 1 o'clock. That's OTB Gold. A retro panel then with Philippa Ryder, Valerie Mulcahy and David Goff. Off the Ball is live from 7 o'clock, and the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast live tonight from 9 o'clock. You can listen to OTB Sports Radio all the time over at offtheball.com/radio, the Go Loud app, or tune in. We'll chat to you tomorrow morning from 7:30. Bye bye for now.
I hear Word Plus credit card, powered by...
Ma'am, the name's Buzz, on account of my work.
No chance.
Not all cowboys ride horses. All